All right, guys. Hello, it's Mike Linsky, your prof. Looking forward to another exam review. Another one bites the dust. This year we're going to be, so this term is winter 2024, and I'm going to be taking up my final exam from last term, fall 2023. Let's jump into it right away. So here's, you might recognize this from our course outline. The first 6 chapters we covered pre-reading week. We covered on the midterm. The final exam, it is non-cumulative. It consists of 60 questions, 10 questions per chapter, multiple choice, only multiple choice. And here we go, chapters 7 through 12. If you're using an old textbook and the chapters don't mirror exactly, here is the chapters we're going to be covering: onboarding, training, development, career planning, performance management, compensation, employee benefits, managing employee relations, ensuring health and safety at the workplace. So there we go. It was covered over 4 lectures, 6 chapters. Each chapter gets 6 questions. Okay, so let's jump into it. I'm going to give you 3 questions. I'm going to give you several old multiple choice questions related to each of these chapters based on last year's exam. Okay, let's do it. Orientation training first. All right, question 1. Again, the way I do this is I show you the questions, we talk about it, I give you the answers, and then we go through it. So if you want to pause this screen right now, look at the question, try to answer it, and then we'll go through the answers after. Okay. So question 1: Sarah, new employee, is having difficulty adjusting to the company's culture once she has started working as her HR manager. As her HR manager, what action should you take to help her better adapt? The other thing I should note is I just told you we're doing orientation and training, okay? However, when reading the question, it doesn't actually come clear as to like what it might be. So you have to look for clues. It's not like I'm going to have saying orientation and training, next 10 questions are associated with that. No, because I mix them throughout. So when you're reading it, try to identify the chapter we're talking about, okay? So here, you can see here, little thing. New employee, right? New employee would suggest maybe something to do with orientation, maybe doesn't know something up to bring up the skills. Difficulty adjusting to the company culture. Okay, so by now you should know it's something to do with orientation. Okay, and once you see some of the like the items down below for the options, you should have a better idea as to what chapter we're talking about. Okay, so anyways, we're talking about orientation here. Okay, so as a HR manager, what action should you take to help her better adapt? Okay. In this case, what I would do is I would think of the socialization process as, you might remember there's anticipatory socialization, the encounter phase, and then role management. Okay, so it's the idea that they're having difficulty adjust to the company culture. It would suggest that it is not anticipatory socialization. This isn't something that can be done before because they're actually on the job and they're having difficulty adjust to the culture. You wouldn't have difficulty adjusting to the culture here. So it's either this encounter phase or role management is something you should be considering for. So it's not anticipatory because you don't really encounter culture issues before you start working. Financial bonus compensation is not something we talk to at all about in the orientation class. C is the answer, right? A mentor, guide. It's that idea that, hey, once you're, and to be honest, it's not even clear whether it's the encounter or role management phase, doesn't really matter. It's the idea, hey, you're going to partner off with a mentor, and that mentor is going to teach you more about the ways in which to embed your values, beliefs, and behaviors into the way that the company operates. Okay. I encourage her to read a company handbook. Okay, a company handbook is good. It's a start, but you're not going to really learn somebody's culture from that. And technical training, no, we're not talking about technical training here. We're not training her in this case, okay? So the answer is C, okay? Number 2, which of the following is a common problem associated with orientation? I listed all of them as problems. Okay, so it would be A, B, and C. It might throw you off if you think it's only like 1 or 2. That's to go about it. Too many forms to fill out. HR information can be too broad, too vague. It doesn't really apply directly to you. And too much information is provided, much like all of my lectures. I give you way too much content, way too little time, and all of it goes over your head, right? So what's the value there? Right. Now we're going to do a short answer question. Again, quick reminder, your final exam is multiple choice exclusively. Last year's exam was a mix of multiple choice and short answers, so that's why I'm doing it here. However, I am showing it here just so you get a better understanding as to how you would dive deeper into a question. Again, I'm not trying to get you to memorize multiple choice questions. No, if you can understand the content, then you can apply this to multiple choice questions as well. Okay, so that's my view. I want you to actually learn these concepts, learn how to apply it, and then you can apply it any way you want. Okay, that's at least in my ideal state, what I want to do. Sarah is a manager at a reputable multinational corporation, which is in the midst of hiring a large number of employees. Okay, so hiring. That would suggest that we're talking about employee selection. I guess later on, we actually focus it more on training. These new hires come from diverse backgrounds with varying levels of experience and qualifications. Sarah recognizes the importance of ensuring that all incoming employees receive the necessary training to integrate seamlessly into the organization and excel in their roles. Okay, there we go. So it's the idea that that's where the training piece comes in. I was wondering, why did I bring this question into this section of the slides? The company values on strong onboarding process to foster employee engagement and long-term retention. Okay, so for me, reading this question, things are really unclear just yet based on this little case component as to what this question is about, but that's kind of high level. Things that pop out, it's this idea, oh my, somebody's at my door. I'm gonna have to pause this for a second. All right, I'm back. Somebody at the door. I'm getting my eavesdrop repaired. So the guy came in here. He's like, it's 22 foot linear feet of eavesdrop. What do you think it costs to replace? Okay, I got one guy that says replacing. One guy says it needs to be repaired. The guy that says repaired, 1,100 for 22 feet, and the guy that's replacing my eavesdrop, it's 2,500 apparently. Seems ridiculous for 22 feet. That's like $100 a foot in terms of like eavesdrop, and it's like one floor up. Anyway, it's ridiculous. Let me vent about that another time. Okay, where are we? Okay, A. Okay, where's my mouse? Okay, so A. So due to the rapid growth and diversity of the new workforce, Sarah is tasked with designing a comprehensive training program. Okay, cool. That caters to describe the first step. Oh, so all of this stuff, everything up before here is kind of useless. This is the only line that really matters, right? So what's the first step? Sorry, I'm scraping all this stuff. What's the first step that she should consider? It's all about the needs assessment. Okay, 100%. This is the most important step in the training process, the needs assessment. Needs assessment drives everything. Okay, needs assessment identifies what needs to be done, what needs to be trained, what is the gap, what do people know, what do people not know. Boom, what you need to train is the difference between what people know and what people don't know, what people know and between what you're supposed to know and what you currently know, or the way the way you're supposed to do things and the way you actually do things. Boom, in the middle, right? Trying to like make those equivalent. That is the needs assessment. That's what the rest of the training process is training based on the needs assessment. Okay, so for these 4 marks, right, is 100%. You have to say the needs assessment, define it, explain it. There's 2 different components to a needs assessment. There's a task analysis, performance analysis. You could have talked about any of those things in here. Yeah, I talked about the task analysis, performance analysis. There's the definitions there. Okay, so there you go. 100%. You better talk about the needs assessment. Okay, this is not actually A. It should be B. Sarah needs to consider various training techniques and formats. Some employees may be more comfortable with online training, while others may benefit from hands-on. What 3 techniques should she consider? Okay, well, there we go. So I made a list. I had a list in my slides, like classroom, on-the-job training, e-learning, instruction learning. There was a whole bunch of different ones. All that I'm asking you to do, what 3 training techniques should she consider, is to identify 3 of them. Hopefully you can tie it in somehow to the case. Okay, so if you say like 3, I probably would have given you 3 marks, but if you wanted 3 plus, right? Not that you get bonus marks on this, is if you identified the 3 training techniques that are, I don't know, somehow related to the case. New employees seamlessly into the organization. It doesn't really provide you multinational. Okay, it doesn't really provide you with any context. Maybe I was just looking for the 3 different training techniques. So what I say down here, cater with him. So there we go. It's the diverse backgrounds and varying skill levels. So you need to provide training that caters to everybody. So a blended approach. So I guess in this case, list 3 different training techniques. Cool, but you better be able to talk to the idea that offering a variety, okay? Provide diversity in terms of training techniques, so that way it'll appeal to different folks. Excellent, there we go. All right, this is not A, this is actually C. This is the last piece, and I think this is the trickiest one. Let's see. Sarah also has to make sure that training is aligned with company culture. Okay, there we go. So this is the catch, okay? This is the catch. This is the part where I like being a prof, okay? How can Sarah ensure that training aligns, that the training aligns with company culture, okay? So I don't explicitly say it, okay? But we're talking about these employees being new, okay? And we talk about training. So it's kind of a mix between orientation and training. And the biggest thing we talked about orientation is the idea of socialization, okay? Socialization is all about the embedding of beliefs, attitudes, behaviors into the new organization, okay? So when it comes to training, you have to somehow ensure that training is, I want you to use the word socialization, and I want you to say that, yeah, well, I guess I say it right here. While training is, it's all about, while this question is about training, it's really all about onboarding in this particular section. So there needs to be some kind of reference to this idea that you're training new employees to help them blend, help them learn more about the organization. So it's not just learning skills, it's about learning the organization. How do you act, feel, and behave in that organization to create that, that sense of belonging, if you will, that sense of belonging, or that role management piece of socialization. Okay? So the trick here was the idea that you're really blending training and orientation, those chapters, into the same question when you're answering it here. Okay? So how can Sarah ensure that training aligns with company culture? Embed that training process within the socialization process. Easy. I would do some aspect of training anticipatory socialization, something that aligns with that, some aspect of training at the first encounter, and some aspect of training in role management. Okay, that's how I would nail it. Cool. Performance management, chapter 2, not chapter 2, but chapter 2 today. As an HR manager, you are tasked with improving the company's performance management system. Which actions would best contribute to you achieving this goal? Okay. So when we talk about performance management systems, we talk about performance management having 5 different steps, or 5 different, it's like 5 different steps in order to achieve performance management. So let's see which of these options relate to one of those different steps. Eliminating performance appraisals altogether would reduce workloads. How would this improve? Improving the company performance management is to remove performance appraisals. Well, that's ridiculous. Conduct annual performance reviews only for senior executives. So you're not going to providing them for the rest of the organization. That's ridiculous too. Implementing annual feedback and coaching sessions. Possibly, we talk about the idea of providing feedback. We talk about the idea of coaching. However, we say that it's frequent. You want this to be as frequent as possible. Annual is not good enough. Cross that off. Increase reliance on subjective performance evaluations. No, that's silly. You should have a mix of subjective and objective performance evaluation. So the only one that really makes sense. Train managers on how to conduct performance reviews correctly. Yes. In the class, we also talked about the idea how performance reviews have the potential to have problems, or people might have biases, appraisal bias, for example, in there. So if you're training managers to do it correctly, that will improve the performance management system. Yes. All right, the next one. With regards to performance management, again here, okay, so on the exam, we don't know that this question's about performance management because they're kind of scattered. Again, any cues that you can do that helps focus your attention in terms of, okay, my mind is now in performance management. With regards to performance management, coaching involves all of the following except, okay, so we talked about 2 basic ideas as to what coaching involves, okay? Coaching involves this idea of inspiring, right? Inspiring, kind of like being the cheerleader for your employees. So it's like the being supportive cheerleading side. And we also talked about the idea of being the listening side. You probe them, you ask open-ended questions, and you hope that they respond, right? Like that kind of idea. Okay, so coaching involves all of the following except. So this could throw you off. Actually, when I was saying the open-ended question piece, I was like, it says close-ended, but then I realized it's this except word. Okay, so we're thinking about things which are not coaching. Okay, helping employees achieve their goals, that's coaching. Probing and asking close-ended questions. So the trick here, if you're like me, probing and asking questions, and you read this quick, and you don't realize that this is the opposite of what you're wanting to answer, then you'd skip over it. Okay, so sometimes you have to like take your time and read it thoroughly rather than skip through things as quick as I do. So close-ended, this is what makes it wrong. If it was probing and asking open-ended questions, that would be right. Let's keep going through. Listening effectively, yes. Supporting employees, avoid fault-finding, yeah. All of those make sense. Okay, let me move my face. Sarah is the HR manager at a growing tech company. She has been tasked with addressing performance management issues concerning one of her team members. Okay, so here we go. I would circle this, highlight. We're talking about performance management here. John is a software engineer with strong technical skills, but struggles to collaborate effectively, communicate with employees, and adapt to changing project requirements. Okay, so for me, if you know performance management, this question right here, strong technical skills but struggles to collaborate. Now I'm going to do this differently. This would suggest we're talking about something to do with task performance versus contextual performance. Clearly, this guy is strong at task performance, which is more aligned with technical skills, and contextual performance, which is more aligned with collaborating with others, interacting with others, being the cheerleader, for others, making sure everybody's on the same page. Seems to struggle with this. Okay, so that's what jumps out immediately to my mind. On line 2. It's affecting team dynamics, causing delays in project delivery and impacting. So a whole bunch of negative outcomes associated with bad contextual performance. Sarah knows that addressing John's low contextual. Oh, there we go. If I was smart, I would have said what type of performance is described here. John's low contextual performance is essential to ensure productive and harmonious work environment. She needs to use the performance management process to help John improve his contextual performance and contribute positively to his team. I think as a prof, I actually missed an opportunity for you to identify the word contextual performance. I think that would have been a key, something interesting to see how many people would have identified that. But anyways, ABC, there's the question. Let's jump to the answers. Okay, so what are the 3 potential consequences of John's low contextual performance on the team and the organization? What are 3 potential? So this is kind of like worded poorly because it kind of suggests 3 negative outcomes for the team and 3 negative outcomes for the organization. Did I read that right? 3 potential consequences of John's on the team and the organization's goals. Okay, so it's asking you for how the team and the organization are going to be impacted. Okay, so it's not asking you, it's only 3 marks. It's not asking you for 3 and 3. It's just asking you for 3 as a whole, but it could be like either or. Okay, so the potential consequences could be reduced team collaboration and effectiveness. Yeah, and I kind of talk about it. It's affecting team dynamics, causing, it's literally saying this in the question. Team dynamics, delays in the project, overall morale, right? Do I have those? Project delays, overall morale. Okay, there we go. Right, so this one was actually super easy. The answer was actually literally in the question. Explain 2 key performance management strategies that Sarah can use to address low contextual performance. Okay. So again, let's recap. What were the 5 in performance management? There's 5 stages. 1 was associated with different types of performance, right? Contextual versus task. 1 is the idea of coaching. 3 was the idea of the appraisal methods. 4 is linking performance with pay, and then 5 is like the developing an action plan. Here's 2. It doesn't have to be 2, but this idea of coaching, right, and the idea of the final piece is around the development plan. That's something that could have been done. So provide coaching, provide feedback on a regular basis, not once a year. No, don't do that. All the time, right? It's actually another thing we talked about in class. Instead of feedback, one thing you could do is provide feed forward. Right, so providing, hey, in the meeting that's going to take place next week, you might want to consider this, this, and this. Watch out for Q, this, and this, right? So providing guidance in advance of an event from occurring, rather than feedback is like, backward looking, right? That kind of idea. Develop an action plan. Sure, this is a really big one. It's the idea that, hey, you're not performing well now. What do we need to do over the next year in order for you to increase your performance? Okay, so developing an action plan. Do they say anything? Did I say anything here? In terms of how to develop the action plan, I would highly recommend, it's not the manager goes in the corner and makes this plan for the individual, for Johnny. It would be ask John to develop a plan for himself, ask Sarah to develop a plan, come together and, kind of together agree on what that plan would look like. Okay. All right, next, describe 2 ways Sarah can measure John's improvement in his contextual performance throughout the performance management system. There's a whole bunch of different ways. I would hope that you would have performance appraisal methods or techniques somewhere in your answer. We talked about graphic rating scale. We talked about like different things like that in class. I hope that's in your answer. Here's a variety of different ways that we could talk about it. You could observation and feedback. So observation and feedback, that'd be more along with like the critical incident method. Okay. Watch what John's doing, document it, and then provide feedback back to John. Peer reviews. Okay, there we go. Now we're talking more about the idea of like a 360-degree feedback. Is the idea that it doesn't just have to be the manager providing feedback to John. You could have from the peers, you could have a skip level report. So it's not the manager, it's the director. You could have customers providing feedback. You could have self-reflection, right? Which I guess is this bottom piece. But there's a whole bunch of different things that you could use. Performance metrics. Again, does it say anything about what this person does? John, software engineer, performance. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the performance metrics associated with software engineering are probably associated with their technical side, but technically you could even go broad. I think it's stretching it a little bit personally, but you could even go broader to say, meeting project deadlines, right? Which I think to be more technical, task oriented than contextual, but I would have even accepted it. All right, compensation, my favorite topic. What is the purpose of a compensation survey in an organization? I put this question in here because I think it's a little bit trickier. It's a little more specific, and I hope you remember what it is. So when we're talking about compensation, there's 3 general phases to developing a compensation range. Developing a compensation range is essentially how much to pay somebody within a particular job. There's 3 things you need to do. First is job evaluation. So you figure out the relative worth or value of a job within an organization. Okay, step 1, job evaluation. Step 2 is collecting market data. Okay, so market data is getting salaries and pay associated with your jobs from other organizations and collecting that and bringing that back. Okay, and then the third step is combining your job, the scores for your job, the pays for the same jobs from other organizations, bringing that together. Okay, part B is the answer. But a compensation survey actually relates to the second step. It's about collecting market data. Okay, there's two ways to collect market data. Market data, you can either buy it from an organization that has already collected market data, or you could collect that market data yourself. How to collect it yourself is by developing a compensation survey. Essentially, you make a survey, a series of questions. You fire this off to mostly your competitors and say, hey, for jobs A, B, and C, what do you pay your employees? You get that information back, and then you share it. Basically, you use that information about. Commonly, you also share it back with everybody who participated in the survey as a thank you for participating. Okay, so it's all about step 2, which is collecting market data. Okay, so knowing that, calculate company's expenses, no. To determine the company's market competitiveness, yeah. So it's a technical way to say how well does your company pay against the market, right? You're collecting market data to see how competitive your company's salaries are competitive to the market. If you pay your employee, if a software engineer is paid higher at your organization versus the average software engineer in another organization, your organization is paying more competitively than the market, than other organizations. And because you're more competitive, you're more likely to attract others into that role. To assess employee satisfaction, no. To determine the cost of market data, No, but at least the reference is market data here. It doesn't have anything to do with the cost. To evaluate the salary of the top performers, no, as well. Again, it's all about this idea of market data. Okay, which of the following is not a common incentive used to reward private sector employees? Okay, so in this case, there's two tricks. Okay, two tricks, or there's three tricks. Right, I'm underselling myself. I highlighted here it is not. Okay, so we're looking at the opposite here, which I know it sounds straightforward. It's the opposite of saying not. But don't forget. The second piece is it's a common incentive. So we're talking about incentives. So you need to know what incentives are. Incentives are different base salaries. They're supposed to promote you or encourage you to work above and beyond, right? So it's the idea, I get a base salary of 100 grand per year. If I work 150%, I should get more than 100 grand, right? That kind of idea. And the last piece, private sector employees. Okay, so private sector would suggest that you can talk about profit. Okay, all those three things combined. Okay, so which of the following is not a common incentive for private sector companies? Okay, so private sector, you can do commission, sales, yes, so that's expected, so that's not a not, gone. An annual bonus. Oh, the other thing you can look at is incentives. Okay, so which of these are incentives, and you can cross them out because we want to do the not piece. Okay, so a bonus is an incentive. A piece rate is not. Base salary is not. Profit sharing is an incentive as well. Well, I guess we could just do that. Yeah, piece it out. So the piece rate is, I guess it's did we classify that as an incentive to get you to motivate to do above and beyond? Yeah. So if you want to make more money, you produce more products and services. So it's directly tied to your work output. Yeah. So I guess the fact that it's private sector didn't really matter. It's just the idea that I listed 4 incentives and I was asking you what's not an incentive. That wasn't that tricky. Microsoft, a famous technology company, has been experiencing challenges related to its compensation structure. Okay. The company historically had a straightforward seniority-based pay system. However, with increasing competition for top talent in the tech industry, Microsoft is reevaluating its compensation strategy. The leadership team is considering implementing a new pay-for-performance model to attract and retain higher performance. Okay, so you can see a lot around this idea of performance, right? We're talking about comp, performance makes me think that we're eventually going to get to commission or something to attract high performers, right? I don't actually know whether we are, but that's where my mind gravitates to. This change is met with mixed reactions, with welcoming opportunity to earn more based on your contributions, and others are concerned about potential disparities and favoritism. Okay, interesting. So there's a question. Let's jump to it. What are 2 potential advantages and disadvantages? So 4 marks in total. Again, your exam, multiple choice, but if you have a short answer, 4 would suggest 2 and 2, from a seniority to a pay performance. So I would, like when I'm writing this out, I would actually make it clear. I'd say like advantages, add, right? And then a separate paragraph to say disadvantage, so it's clear that you're talking about it, and then probably number them too, just to make it as easy as possible. But okay, so the big thing with pay performance is, did I give anything in the question to make it easier? So I kind of say here, so we're shifting from seniority based, which is pretty much each year you work, you get paid more money, to performance based is the harder you work, the more effective you work, the more productive you work, the more money you make, right? Like that kind of idea. I kind of suggest it right here. So what the opportunity to earn more based on your contributions would be an advantage. And then the disadvantages are the potential for disparities and favoritism. So the last line pretty much sums it up. Other things to think about: increased motivation, better alignment with organizational goals, attract top talent. Yeah, you might think of how is it better alignment of individual and organizational goals. You could think about it from the perspective of, yeah, we're going to pay people more when they contribute, when the organizational goals are better met, right? That kind of idea. So I think that all makes sense. The disadvantages, potential disparities, which I already talked about, subjective evaluations. Resistance from employees. So they already mentioned there was resistance, yes. Is there another one? Disadvantages, pay performance. You could even talk, well, I guess the subjective evaluations, you could even talk about it from the idea that certain jobs, such as sales, where there's a clear number, hey, if you sell this many goods, you're going to get paid X number of dollars. For those jobs, it could be easier to establish pay based on performance, but other jobs where it's more collaborative and team oriented, it might be more challenging for you to effectively establish pay in a fair manner. Yeah. Okay, B, how can Microsoft ensure a fair and transparent implementation of pay for performance model while minimizing the risk of favoritism? Okay, so there we go. So in the previous question, we say, hey, we want an opportunity to contribute more but the worry is being fair. Well, this question says, hey, how can we ensure that we're offering this model, which is, how can we get more, motivate our employees more, but still being fair? Okay, so one of the things I would highly recommend, I guess I make a note here about. I'm hoping, since we're talking about being fairness and transparent, if you reference pay equity, pay transparency, boom, you're already a step ahead, because that is important. Pay equity is the equal pay for equal work of equal value. So it's the idea you're not going to pay one gender, one sex, one person more than another if they're contributing the same amount. Okay. Now, having said that, you're not comparing an astronaut to a janitor or vice versa, right? It's all within the same realm or similar types of work. Okay. Pay transparency is the idea that you are being transparent in terms of how much you are paying people, whether that's their exact salaries, and not people, like you'd be publishing that either inside the organization or outside, how much people are being paid, such as on the Sunshine List, or you could publish pay ranges. So set, for example, on job descriptions, job advertisements, when you're applying for a job, is the actual realm or range of pay that you're able to receive as associated with that job, is that published? If it is, that would suggest that there's pay transparency in that organization. Okay, so how can you do this? A job evaluation, okay, is number one. Okay, objective metrics for evaluation. So evaluate the jobs 100%. You have to evaluate the jobs before, just so you can see the relative worth to, as a baseline for ensuring is in a way to compare across jobs. Okay, so I hope you have the word job evaluation in there as well. Providing regular feedback, sure, but training managers how to do this is a big one. We talk, one of the risks that was mentioned previously was subjective evaluations, particularly for performance. So train managers how to evaluate people correctly. We could also talk about the idea that you could bring in consultants, right? Bringing experts to do it for the first time, provide or purchase tools and templates for how to correctly evaluate people, what type of tools can be used to evaluate somebody. If you're using a graphic rating scale versus alternation ranking versus the other forms of, like, which one are you going to use? We make sure that it's a validated tool so that it's effective and you can rely on it. Okay, what communication strategy should Microsoft employ to navigate the transition and gain employee buy-in from a new comp structure? Okay, so it's the idea that you've made the decision, pay per performance. How do you communicate this out to ensure that everybody is kind of on board with this? Okay, so one thing I don't actually lay out here is I would love it if we talk in class, we talk about upward, downward, lateral, different forms of communication. I would love it if you talked a little bit about that. What communication channel are you using? Okay, I think it's kind of obvious that we're talking about downward communication, right? So it's the idea that that the executives who are making these decisions will communicate to the rest of the employees what the new pay per performance kind of philosophy, what it entails, how do they get paid more money, how does it work? So I'd love for you to talk about what channels. Are we talking about emails? Are we talking about town halls? Are we talking about meetings? Are we talking about formal presentations? Are we talking about one-on-one meetings, by-lots with your manager? How are we going about it? Talk about it downward. Provide opportunity for feedback. That would be a lovely idea to say, hey, we're not dictating all of this. We're dictating most of it, but we're not dictating all of it. We would love to hear your feedback as well. So how we can adjust, tweak, and modify this moving forward. Okay. And the other thing that should also be said is that it's kind of like anytime you implement a major change, such as to pay, people are very sensitive about pay, don't frame it as a pilot, because this would be serious, but say that it's kind of like a work in progress, and we will continue to adapt to based on feedback provided. Okay, always let know that we're open to ongoing communication to not only gain employee buy-in, but to improve the service. Okay, to improve it. Benefits. I love my benefits at my job. Okay, well, let's talk about. Did I say any of them? No, I didn't ask any questions about my own. Which employee benefit is often tied to an employee's length of service and allows them to take time off from work in order to cope with a personal or family crisis. So that's, it's pretty much a straightforward definition of what bereavement pay is. Okay, unpaid, let's see, is often tied to employee's length of service. So unpaid leave is not tied to length of service. Okay, it also does not relate to, you could take time off unpaid pretty much for any reason, such as a personal crisis, but it's not associated with length of service. Paternity leave is about having kids, fathers having kids. Compassionate care leave, when you're taking care of somebody in the hospital. Maternity is for moms. There we go. Okay. 10, which of the following benefits are considered paid time off? Which one is it? 1, 2, or 3? It's all of them. Yeah, I can't really explain more than that. They're all relates to all of them. Okay, Maple Leaf. Okay, Maple Leaf Corporation, a large Canadian company. I don't know what industry. It's the food industry. Is considering making significant changes to its employee benefits package. The company has been experiencing substantial voluntary turnover due to a lack of competitive total rewards package. Interesting here, I always talk about turnover with compensation. I typically talk about with compensation. Now I'm framing it from a benefits perspective. Again, we don't know that. Oh yeah, I guess I was going to say we don't know it's this question about benefits, but yeah, I guess we do right here. It is benefits. In response to employee feedback and in line with industry trends, HR department is reviewing its current benefits program. Okay, so up until here, I don't know if there's anything of real value, okay, other than substantial turnover. I should note while we're on here, there's two types of turnover, voluntary, involuntary. Voluntary turnover is when I, as an employee, choose to leave. Involuntary turnover is when we downsize, we terminate, we get rid of people as an organization. Okay. The proposed changes include increasing the number of paid. So this is, so these are the changes. We don't tell you what the current package is. We're just telling you about these are the proposed changes. We're increasing the number of paid vacation days, introducing a wellness program, wellness, think like mental health, physical health, right? That kind of thing. Enhancing retirement. Say, I don't know why I put the word enhancing. Ooh, we're enhancing. That's just increasing. However, these changes may come at an increased cost to the company. Okay, so I don't think that's going to be relevant, but that's kind of like something to distract you. Okay, now let's go to the actual questions. Okay. What motivated Maple Leaf to consider changes to the employee benefits package? Okay, so substantial voluntary turnover, that seems to be pretty obvious. Okay, I also who would have accepted this line as well based on feedback, but it's really at the end of the day, it's about turnover. Explain two employee benefits and two organizational benefits that result from increasing the number of paid. Okay, so here we go. So it's the idea. Here we go. Again, you didn't need to know anything in the case based on that, but what are two things? So it's 4 marks. So I'm looking for 2 and 2. Okay, 2 employee benefits is the first line. Okay. Improved work-life balance, sure. You can spend more time with family. Reduce burnout, yes. You're allowed to recover from work. Improve overall job satisfaction, sure. You get the happier you are as a whole, the happier you will be at work, the more you'll be able to invest in work. We could also talk about the idea of work engagement, employee engagement, perhaps performance, right? Or a whole bunch of positive things that come out of taking time off and recover from it. From an org perspective, it can lead to increased employee retention. Yeah, the happier people are, they're less likely to leave. which was the big issue we were trying to address. Improve productivity. Oh yeah, I guess I mentioned this when I was talking about the employee stuff. Yeah, I guess it is more of an org outcome. I apologize. Potentially lower recruitment and training costs. Yeah, the recruitment costs, yeah, that would go directly into here. Training costs, I guess, is associated with recruitment. So that's kind of a chintzy answer, but there you go. Okay. What factors should Maple Leaf Corporation consider when introducing a wellness program as part of the employee benefits package? I think the big thing, okay, so I have like practical answers first, right? To include how engaged they're going to be, how much the communication, the budget, all that stuff, right? But I think the big thing is, are employees going to use this? Okay, so for me, my gut, when I read this question, my gut feel is, I'm going to offer this. There's going to be a cost to this. Will employees, one, use it? Will they like it? Two, will it provide value to the employees? Three, and can I do say it costs $10,000 to the organization? Can I do anything for $10,000 instead of providing a wellness program that they would like even more, right? So those are all the different considerations I would consider when tackling this question. So keep all of those things in mind. This last question, this last line is quite good as well. How is it aligned to the organization's goals and culture? Okay, it should. Again, this is the type of question. There's not one perfect answer. As long as you defend yourself, explain it, you would get it. I probably wouldn't mention org culture because nothing in here is about org culture. However, I do think it's a good point to have, and you'd certainly get marks for it if you did talk about it. Okay, which of the following is not a potential goal of positive discipline in the workplace? Okay, so read this question, you circle potential goal, or like I don't like the word potential goal. I think of like outcome. For some reason, what happens as a result? There we go. There's my chicken scratch of positive outcome. So, and this is the word not. So let's look at all the things that are outcomes of positive discipline, and then we can start crossing them off from there. Okay, so promoting a supportive workplace is an outcome. So cross it off. Encouraging continuous improvement is an outcome. Motivating employees to excel in their roles, outcome. Minimizes consequences for minor offenses. This is an outcome as well. Minimizing consequences for minor offenses. I think it's more major offenses is what an outcome of positive discipline is. So maybe it's this idea, it minimizes consequences for minor. That's not really an outcome of positive discipline. Okay, so I guess that's why that is the correct answer. It is not an outcome. Which of the following are alternatives to layoffs? Ooh, interesting. Which of the following are alternatives to layoffs? Yes. So so a layoff versus down. So there's three different ways for involuntary turnover. There's three different forms of involuntary turnover. Termination, layoffs, downsizing. Termination is when you messed up, you terminate somebody, you fire them, you get them out of the organization. Typically, it's only one person at a time when you terminate somebody. Layoffs versus downsizing. Downsizing are permanent shifts in the organization. You're permanently removing people from the organization. A layoff is a temporary, typically seasonal or temporarily associated with like demand fluctuations. You're letting somebody go with the intention that you're going to be bringing them back later on. Okay. All right. So that's what layoffs are. What's an alternative? Alternative. Okay. So suspension is when somebody messes up. I don't even understand how I put that question. So that's just wrong. And overtime. Oh, I see what I did there. Yeah, so it's the idea of an alternative to a layoff. Okay, so layoffs are when you have, say, let's say 100 people in the organization. I guess the vertical, that's the number of people. And then a layoff is when you decrease the number of people for a temporary period of time and then bring it back up to that 100, right? That 100 people. An alternative would be, say your baseline is, it looks like 70 people. Okay. And then you're using contingent workers during that peak season And then when that peak season's done, you're bringing it back. Contingent worker is a contract worker, temporary worker, seasonal worker, summer student, that kind of idea. Okay. Overtime is, it's not really the same because it's overtime is you don't have the same number of employees. You're just asking them to work longer hours. So overtime would be good for, or would it? It kind of does sound like an alternative to a layoff. You're not laying people off. No, it doesn't, because it's not the same as bringing in new people. Okay, so yeah, so in this case, it's really only overtime is when you're just paying somebody more, asking them to work a few more hours. Sure, that might help out for like a little bit, but if you have like a huge, big demand issue, you're not gonna get overtime work. Overtime, you're gonna ask people to work twice as many hours, and you're gonna get everybody in the organization to do that. So it's just not an alternative to a layoff. Okay, so A is the correct answer. Me too. Me too. But so this is, the simple joys of being a prof. Not YouTube, it's MeTube. A medium-sized tech firm is facing challenges within its customer support demand. The department consists of a diverse team of employees with varying levels of experience and performance. So in this case, you can see varying levels of experience and performance. It's not clear what we're dealing with yet, what chapter. Recently, department manager Sarah's been all over this exam, has noticed increase in issues related to employee behavior and performance. Okay, that's beginning to say we're contemplating different disciplinary performances. Okay, disciplinary approaches. Okay, this is real. You need this last line to figure out what chapter are we talking about. So the first question is, what is progressive discipline? Okay, let's jump right into the question. What is progressive discipline? Progressive discipline, you can think of, I like to think of it like a reverse waterfall, if you will. It's like a verbal warning, a written warning, suspension, full-on termination. Okay. That's kind of the idea of what progressive is. It's the idea that you're progressing for each time an incident or poor behavior occurs. You're increasing the every time an infraction, either the intensity or frequency of an infraction occurs, you're increasing the intensity or frequency of penalty or reaction, right? That kind of idea, response, if you will, to that employee. So what is progressive discipline? I talked about that. How might the application of this approach look at MeTube? Oh, I just, just described the verbal, written, suspension, termination. Okay. B, what is positive discipline? How might the application of this look? So positive discipline is like the whole like educational continuous learning. It's you're bringing the organization and the employee together, bringing them together, teaching the employee rather than just saying, hey, giving them a penalty, a suspension. It's the idea, hey, come together. You're educating the employee about what they did right, what they did wrong, what are the implications of what they're doing wrong over and over and over. Perhaps getting the employee to teach it to other employees as well, give their own workshop. That kind of idea. So it's more of a collaborative approach to improving somebody's behavior by disciplining them. Okay. And again, it's that positive reinforcement idea. It's about being supportive, producing a productive team culture rather than, if we're to talk about the carrot and the stick analogy, the positive discipline is more of the carrot idea. Progressive discipline is more of the stick idea. Wow, I got a lot of answers here. What factors need to be considered when determining whether Sarah should implement progressive or positive discipline? This question would be impossible to ask on a multiple choice question because this is something that we didn't explicitly talk about in class. I told you about what is progressive and positive discipline. We never talked about like the factors. So you had to kind of like, this was a tough question because you had to kind of like rationalize, think about it, and justify your answer a variety of ways. So again, the yellow comments, the yellow text in all of these questions are associated with what I gave my TA. Okay, so like, yeah, so here, use your judgment. Here are some ideas. This is not a comprehensive list. The nature and severity of the discipline, I have frequency. I guess nature, severity, the frequency of the discipline will impact whether you're selecting a progressive or positive discipline. Employee history, company policies, desired outcomes. Another thing you can say is, do you have the capacity to teach somebody, to have an educational facility? I guess a medium-sized tech firm, so I assume that they would. company culture, right? Company culture is a big one. If it's more of a collaborative culture, you'd probably do the positive discipline. If it was more of a performance-oriented culture, you probably would do the progressive. The idea around discipline or philosophy around discipline and like terminating employees, in terms of a progressive discipline, perhaps that progression is like written warning termination, right? And it's not that collaborative approach. It's not that as many warning signs to go through. So there's a variety of different things you could talk. Oh, let me move my face. There's a variety of different things you could talk about here. Last section. With regard to OHS. So here, again, questions are randomly shown in the exam. OHS, if you're not familiar, occupational health and safety, okay? But I put this in here, it should prompt you. You should know what it is. Okay, so based on OHS, employers are responsible for, okay, so broadly speaking, occupational health and health and safety used to be based strictly on what the employers can do. It's shifted since then. Now there's three main stakeholders: the employers, the employees, and the occupational health and safety committees. This question is specifically looking at what the employers are responsible for. Okay, knowing the hazards is something the employees are responsible for. Participating in this process, employees. Refusing unsafe work, employees. Posting productivity reports has nothing to do with safety. So D. Okay, government or the employers are responsible for reporting this to the government. Okay, 10. Type A personalities are more likely to experience which common OHS challenge in Canada? I love this question because I'm also a type A personality. Type A people are go, go, go. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. It's more about quantity rather than quality. Not that I like that aspect about myself, but regardless. So if you think about this, if you're go, 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 always trying to get stuff done, are you likely to consume substances? No, especially since I just said I have this issue. This is not water. No, that's not true. Repetitive strain injuries, that's quite possible. That's not what the textbook says. But if you're go, 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 and I'm always on the computer working, potentially, but no, that's not the correct answer. Workplace toxins, no. Type A people are not more likely to smoke. I don't know, maybe they are. We definitely didn't cover that in the textbook. Job-related stress, yeah, that's the answer. Violence at work, no, you're not going to fight more people. Okay, now here we go. Last short answer question of the review. TMU Manufacturing, again, love this part of my job. A prominent manufacturing company in Canada has recently faced increased scrutiny from government regulators regarding its potential occupational health and safety. The company operates a large production facility and has experienced a few workplace accidents and near misses. Okay. The HR and safety departments are working to address these concerns in compliance with occupation. Okay, so essentially, this company's operating, shit's hitting the fan, there's accidents, you want to make sure that you comply with Canadian legislation. That's my interpretation of the question. Okay, let's go to them. Let's jump into them. What are two potential consequences if, oh, look at this, I should have said TMU, what a goofball. What are two potential consequences for this company if it fails to address the occupational health and safety concerns of its? So if you don't address these concerns, there's a whole host of people are going to get injured, people are not going to feel safe. There's going to be turnover, damage to the company, increased insurance costs, increased costs for repairs, a whole host of like negative outcomes. Now, part B, where's my mouse? Identify and explain two clear steps TMU Manufacturing should take with management to improve. Okay, so this is, so whenever an accident occurs, okay, there's three causes of accidents. One, chance occurrence. You can't do anything, like weather. Two, unsafe conditions. These are things that management, employers are responsible for. And then three is unsafe actions. Those are the things employees are for, okay? This question specifically says, what are things that the employer or management can do to reduce the chances of accidents or injuries, okay? So this was part of the slides that we talked about. What can the employers do to reduce the chances of accidents occurring? Okay. And there's a whole bunch of the different ones offered. Okay. Collaborate with government agencies, maintain records, offer, create and offer training, identify hazards, conduct a safety audit. There's all different things that management employers can do to reduce the causes of accidents. And then here, explain 2 ways in which employees should demonstrate. So in other ways, what are two ways that employees can reduce reduce unsafe actions in the workplace? Okay. There's a lot, here they are here. Okay. I'll move my face so you can see underneath, but they are all shown. These are all different examples. You could have also talked about like specific behaviors like following the rules, operating speed lower, no horseplay. These are all different things that employees can do to reduce the chances of unsafe actions, or make their actions more safe. Anyways, guys, that is it. So good luck, and I hope you found this review helpful. Okay, I'm going to turn her off now. Bye-bye.